I'm just back from a cruise on Explora Journeys Explora 2, and I was really disappointed how many passengers I met on there are still following cruise tips that frankly I know are overrated and out of date. Tips that many cruising articles and videos are still recommending cruisers use. Welcome aboard, I'm Gary Bembridge, and I want to tell you about 4 overrated cruise tips I think you should ditch overboard, and importantly, what you should be doing instead. I meet many cruise passengers on cruises who proudly talk about the loyalty status level they've built up with that particular line. Many cruise pundits encourage building loyalty, remarking on the added perks and discounts that you can build up, but I disagree. Why? First, it takes a lot of cruises to get to a significant tier that gives you reasonable perks. For example, to get to a level on Royal Caribbean like Diamond, where you start to have meaningful perks like access to a special lounge with all-day snacks and happy hour, priority embarkation, disembarkation, 4 drinks vouchers per day. Even if you were to book a 7-night cruise every single year, it'll take you 12 years to reach that level. Second, if you focus on one line to build loyalty, you're limited by where they're going, what ports they call on, what ships they have, and when they're going. So you often will be compromising on the very best itinerary. Let me give you a couple of examples. Say you've got a cruise line you're building loyalty with and you want to go to Alaska. If it's not one of the few cruise lines that has a license to go into Glacier Bay, you miss out on one of the best parts of Alaska. But if you'd gone with another line that has a license, you would definitely have an even more incredible experience. If you're cruising in the Mediterranean or Asia, many ports are far away from the key towns and sites. So unless you go on a cruise line with smaller ships that can dock within the actual city, you're going to miss out. For example, lines like Azamara with smaller ships dock in the center of Marseille, France, while larger ships are way out in a very unattractive container port. The same, for example, if you're visiting Shanghai, China, where I went recently on Crystal on a smaller ship. We were able to get right into town to dock while bigger ships were miles out in a container port. Thirdly, by switching between lines instead of staying loyal, you can get deals that way exceed any perks from being loyal. Let me give you an example. Years ago, I used to be loyal to Cunard, and I'm actually at their highest tier level. But I booked a Holland America South America cruise instead of theirs, which was roughly the same fare. I have limited status on Holland America, but the deal at the time included their Have It All package. So I got Wi-Fi, drinks, gratuities, special aid dining, and excursion credits, which not only are way above any of the limited perks I get on Cunard with my high level, but those would have been add-on costs on Cunard's. It would have cost me over $2,000 if I'd gone on Cunard, so much more. While some lines do offer a free cruise or nights for high status, you're going to have to spend hundreds of nights on board and spend a fortune. But by jumping between lines to find the best itinerary at the best price, I know you will spend less and get more for your buck overall. Many fellow passengers, cruise writers, bloggers and vloggers encourage cruisers to use cruise line excursions, mostly as the line says the ship will wait if any of their excursions are delayed getting back before sail away time. Now, while this is a plus, I do think using cruise line excursions is an overrated tip these days. Why? Well, first, cruise line excursions are usually the costliest way of exploring any port. Cruise lines do not run their excursions. They contract them in most cases to third-party companies like Intercruises, who then source and hire local providers to run them. So as well as the line marking up the excursion cost a lot, there may also be a series of middlemen costs already marking them up too. This makes cruise line tours expensive. You can often be paying as much as twice as if you were doing the same tour by a local or independent provider. Secondly, most cruise lines offer a limited choice. They focus on a few key excursions they know will sell well because they need to fill buses and they need to hit sales targets. So if you have a more niche or specialist interest or want to do something a little bit different, you're probably not going to find it on a cruise line excursion. Thirdly, most cruise line excursions are larger group sizes with full bus loads. Fourthly, they tend to be designed to tick off and do as much as possible in a port. So they tend to be pretty rushed around different places and different things because they want people to be able to tick off lots of things that they said they can say they saw or did. If you talk to any tour guide, you will see they have a very detailed schedule of where they need to be and time is very tight. Fifthly, cruise line excursions keep you within the cruise bubble. You're not experiencing and interacting much or at all with the local population, nor dining locally, seeing a more authentic side to the port, and so on. So I think using cruise line excursions is an overrated cruise tip. I suggest trying something different. Look, for example, at using independent providers. They usually offer more diverse excursions, smaller groups, and almost always are cheaper. Plus, most will guarantee to get you back to the ship because they use local tour guides who are used to working with cruise passengers. And if for some reason they do not, they will make all the arrangements and cover any cost to get you to the ship at the next port. One that I personally recommend and use is called Shore Excursions Group. I like them as I can input my cruise line, the cruise ship, and the dates, and that brings up all the tours that they can get me by port. They only show tours that will work with the times my ship is scheduled to be in port. They have that return to ship guarantee, and I know that they vet local tour providers constantly and review them constantly. By the way, if you want to consider using them, you can get 5% off every single tour you book using my link tipsfortravelers.com/shore excursions and then enter the code TFT5 at checkout. I've linked to that also in the notes of this. As a reminder, that's tipsfortravelers.com/shore excursions and the code is TFT5. If they don't appeal, other good ones that I've used include viator.com and ventureashore.com. Because of the way things were, most writers, bloggers and vloggers, including me, would strongly stress the importance of switching your mobile phone off or onto airplane mode when on a cruise to avoid costly roaming charges. If it connects to the ship's satellite phone services and your phone starts downloading emails, updating apps and so on, or you make or receive calls, the costs are absolutely astronomical. For example, phone calls are like $6 a minute and upwards. Until now, your only option was to buy the rather costly cruise line Wi-Fi to stay connected. These days, this tip is heading to becoming an overrated one because there are fast emerging options and packages from some mobile phone providers and eSIM companies that actually work when cruising. For example, AT&T users in the United States can add a cruise package which allows 1 gigabyte of data, talk and unlimited text on 175 cruise ships and growing, certainly at the time of recording. This worked for various US AT&T users on that Explora Journeys trip I mentioned at the start of this. Now more providers are starting to offer this, but check the exact offer and capability carefully. For example, I looked at another provider like T-Mobile, which shows that theoretically you could connect and use it on your cruise, but on some ships it was still $6 a minute, but on others it was included in the cruise package. So do check very carefully. Now there is another option available to everyone, and this is what I tested out and used on that Explora Journeys trip, which is a cruise package eSIM. I used one from a company called GigSky. So GigSky is an eSIM, so I don't have to change the SIM in my phone. It can be used on, at the time of recording, 220 cruise ships, and they work by connecting to Starlink or satellite at sea services. The advantage of this is it's perfect for people who don't want to be connected all the time, so it avoids having to buy a costly Wi-Fi package. So it's ideal for cruisers that want to occasionally check email, do a little bit of online browsing, the occasional WhatsApp or FaceTime call home. Now, for example, I tested out, I bought 3 gigabytes of data for the Explora Journey trip. It cost me about $50 US, and I could do web browsing. I was able to do email. I did a couple of voice calls, and I even downloaded a couple of Netflix shows to watch. I actually didn't use all that data. So if you ever try an eSIM, I suggest buying a smaller package because they're really easy to add on. If you try any of these packages, do still remember to check carefully and see if you need to put your phone into airplane mode. With GigSky, I had to switch off my regular phone number, my regular phone provider, which was simple to do. So that didn't connect to the ship service and I was just using GigSky. You can find out more about GigSky and actually get 10% off any purchase by visiting tipsfortravelers.com/GigSky and use the code TFT at checkout. tipsfortravelers.com/GigSky and the code is TFT. Link in the notes of this too. Another thing that I see many writers, bloggers and bloggers recommend as a tip is buying packages to save money. Things like those all-inclusive packages such as Norwegian's More at Sea, Celebrity Always Included, Holland America Have It All, and Princess Plus. Or On the lines without those bundled packages, then drinks packages, Wi-Fi packages, specialty dining packages, photo packages, and so on. But I think this tip is overrated too. Why? So do you really believe that cruise lines are going to offer packages so we save money? Of course not. They've created and sell packages because it means that we're going to spend more money on board, not less. Onboard spending is key to cruise line profits, especially for value cruise lines. They have low fares to get us on board, and then it's sell, sell, sell. They want us to buy and spend on board, and they've clearly found that packages are a successful way of driving up the amount of money we as passengers spend on board. To confirm this, I do see in the reports that the cruise lines make every quarter to Wall Street, all reporting how the amount that we spend per head on board is going up and up. These reports also show that most passengers spend between another 50% and 100% of the fare they've paid once we get on board. So those packages are a significant part of that spend. And I believe for most passengers, buying things more ad hoc is likely to cost less. So while I think the tip to buy packages is overrated for that reason, I do concede that it's not overrated as a tip in the two following situations. First, if, like I do sometimes, you just want the convenience of buying a package, knowing that you've paid for everything before you get on the ship, because it can just make the trip more enjoyable, less stressful sometimes. Certainly, I don't have to think then about tracking or how much I'm spending. Second, packages work when I have actually spent time to calculate if it will save me money based on my planned cruise habits for that cruise. For many cruises, I will look at each of the packages and calculate if they are saving me money. For example, premium and streaming Wi-Fi is really important to me because I always work on board. I need to upload and download video files. I like to download and stream different TV shows to keep up with them. So that's really, really important to me. So in most cases, those all-inclusive packages do not work at all because they don't usually include premium streaming Wi-Fi. So it's silly of me to buy a package which includes Wi-Fi when I'm then going to have to pay for what I really need on top of that. When it comes to drinks package, while I don't drink alcohol, I do drink especially coffees, sodas, alcohol-free beers, alcohol-free cocktails. So I compare buying ad hoc to what a package would cost me. And to do that, I use easy online drinks package calculators like those on cruisely.com and cruisemummy.co.uk sites. I've again put links in the notes for those. Again, I find many of these all-inclusive packages just don't work for me because they are including a big drinks package. But for alcohol drinkers, the drinks packages are based on and priced at including up to 15 drinks a day. So consider, are you really going to drink that much every day, or would actually ad hoc still work out much cheaper? So my tip is work out if the packages are really saving you money. Do not assume they're a great deal. You're going to be shocked at how much more you could be paying. I also think that there are many overrated tips when it comes to cruise cabins. So why don't you join me over in this video where I talk about what I'm seeing smart cruisers do these days when it comes to cabins and why you should too. See you over there.